Hello and welcome into another episode of Locked On Wolves. It's the post-game pod for the Wolves win over the Jazz on Monday night. We're going to talk three big things right off the top, including Julius Randle and honestly the Wolves' front court's continued dominance. It's all upcoming next.
You are Locked On Timberwolves, your daily Minnesota Timberwolves podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Wolves podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. The Locked On Podcast Network is now the number one sports podcast network. Yes, the number one sports podcast network. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Happy Tuesday, everybody, and it's a very happy Tuesday. The Wolves won again on Monday night, 2 wins in 2 days. Now 3 straight wins and 5 out of 6 for the Wolves. Today's the postgame podcast. We're going to break down what happened in Wolves Jazz on Monday evening. And we're going to start with 3 big things right off the top. We're going to talk Wolves front court, especially Julius Randle. We're going to talk how the Wolves had timely contributions throughout this game from, I think at the moment we could call it a big 4, which, I don't know that we're saying big 3, big 4 anymore, but kind of sort of that's what the Wolves have been getting a lot of production out of 4 primary guys. And they kind of took turns doing that in this game. We'll talk about the rotation, which suddenly appears a bit shorter. Obviously, TJ Shannon's still banged up. We'll talk about all that as well. Plus more other observations from this game, and we'll close with studs and duds as we always do on the post-game pod. A big thank you off the top for making Locked On Wolves your first listen. Of course, you can find this show anywhere. You can listen wherever you like to listen to podcasts. You can also watch on YouTube as well. All right. So the Timberwolves have now, as mentioned, won 3 in a row, 5 of 6. Obviously, the loss to the Knicks last Wednesday, and a very manageable schedule upcoming. They do have a Friday night game against the Kings before the back-to-back on Saturday against the Nuggets at home, which will obviously be challenging. But the Wolves have continued to do, and they did this on Monday night on the second night of a back-to-back on the road, what I said they needed to do, or I thought they could do on, I think, Friday's show, and then again also yesterday, which is beat the teams they should beat. And what they need to do next is show they could be not just competitive, but win some of the games against teams that are as good or better than them. And Monday night wasn't like, what was if I remember right, the FanDuel line was 7.5. And I thought that it was a little bit low, but I thought the Wolves would win. Sure enough, they ended up winning by 7 on a cheap bucket at the end, which I thought was funny. Pretty bad beat for that one if you did take the Timberwolves minus 7.5. But the second night of a back-to-back is never easy. A team you just beat by like 40 on, 3 days prior on Friday night. They haven't played since then. They've been at home with 2 days rest. It was never going to be easy. And things were clunky to start. Minnesota was down 4 at the end of the first quarter. They were only up 2 at halftime. I think they were down by as many as 9 in the second quarter. And the urgency, which if you heard yesterday's show, I harped on how urgent the Timberwolves played in their win against the Kings on Sunday. It was the urgency. It was the effort. They just played hard throughout the game, and that's how they won by 20 plus on Sunday. That wasn't there in the first half of this game. But sometimes that happens for a quarter or two over the course of a season on a back-to-back against a team you just beat by 40 that you feel like you should walk all over. And the Wolves found themselves down 2 at halftime. What happened in the third quarter? Ant and Julius Randle were like, no, we're not doing this. We're going to have another 40-point quarter, which is like what, the 4th straight game, I think they've had a 40-point quarter, or a 3rd straight game, and like, I don't know, 5 of their last 9 quarters or something like that. Just like exploded for 40 points in the third quarter. And that's kind of the roadmap of what happened. I want to start with the 3 big things, though. The first thing is Julius Randle. And we'll probably unpack. I think I'll spend a bit more time on him. We've got a couple days here without games, so I think I'll spend some more time on Julius on Wednesday's show. But in this game in particular, this is the second straight game that you look up and you're like, man, he put together 27, 8, and 7. Like, what are we watching here? Is this like ultralight LeBron from a few years ago? Like the 27, 8, and 7. What did he have the other night? It was very similar against Sacramento. Just kind of the stat stuffing score sheet, and you don't really, in the moment, it doesn't always feel like it. Like, he was, of course, part of the big third quarter. He was secondary to Ant in terms of like putting the foot down and be like, we're not messing around anymore. But he was good early. He was consistent throughout. For Julius Randle to turn in another 7 assists, 2 turnover game is huge. He was 19, 6, and 4 against Sacramento. The game before that was the triple-double, the 19, 12, and 10 against Utah. That one he had more turnovers, but he also had 12 assists. So, like, the scoring was up in this game. The assists were up over last game. He also had 3 steals. So over the last 3 games, Julius Randle has put together, 23 assists to 10 turnovers. So the turnovers are a little high, skewed by the 7 turnover game last Friday when he also had 12 assists. But he's also averaged 8 rebounds over those 3 games. So what is that? A little over 7 assists, 8 rebounds. So over the last 3 games, he's like 23 a game, points a game, 8 rebounds a game, and 7.5 assists a game. And it's relatively quiet. Like, you don't leave these games going. Like, remember the Knicks game, he dropped 32 in the loss, but the rebounds and assists were suppressed a little. And the game before that was another triple-double. Like, Julius has 2 triple-doubles now in the last 5 games after not having any last season in a Timberwolves uniform. The triple-doubles are not quiet, but there are quieter triple-doubles. And he's had a couple of those already. And the way he goes about it is just so... It's strange, too, because if you had asked me a year ago to describe Julius Randle, quiet would not have been on the list in terms of his playing style. Right? You think bully ball, you think isolation, you think, pre-Wolves Julius Randle or even early last season was more of a give me the ball, get out of the way sort of a thing. And I don't necessarily mean that. I mean, is it a positive thing, but I don't mean it in a super negative way. Like, he's a good scorer. But that was the concern, is he'd be a ball stopper, et cetera. And Chris Finch kept pushing this. Julius is a point forward for us. Julius is a point forward. This is what I wanted him to do with the Pelicans years ago. And we look up and he's putting up triple doubles and averaging, 7-ish assists a game over the last 5. This was relatively efficient, 44% from the field. He only made 1 3 again for the second straight game. He got to the line 13 times in this game. These teams with inferior front courts, Julius can just bully them. And I think he got called for 1 charge late in the game, which was an absolutely absurd call. Just ridiculous. It was a Filipowski flop, one of several in the game, but I think the only one that got called. But hey, if Randle gets called for a charge a game and is still getting 27, 8, and 7, fine. That if he's getting the line 13 times, you can take 1 turnover on a charge. The aggression and the assertiveness, but yet within the flow of the offense has been so impressive from Julius Randle. And that's really my biggest takeaway from this game is Ant has the loud 35. Ant has the massive third quarter. And Julius was just kind of along the way, a little bit in the background. Hey, what did I say yesterday? If he's tied for 3rd in scoring? He was 2nd rebound, 2nd in assists, tied for 1st in field goal attempts. This game, he was number 2 in scoring on the Wolves, number 2 in rebounding, number 1 in assists, and number 2 in field goal attempts. That is a perfect Julius Randle game. Once again, if he can sit there and be in the top 2 in all 3 of those categories, points, rebounds, and assists, you're in great shape. He also led the team in steals, by the way, and obviously in free throw attempts with 13 as well. Fantastic Julius Randle game. Very impressive. And more of that to come, undoubtedly. I want to hit 2 more big things that I've got. One is also, we'll call it Randle adjacent. And I want to talk about the rotation a little bit, and then I've got a couple other observations before we get to individual studs and duds. We'll do all that here next. Today's episode of Locked On Wolves is brought to us by our friends at FanDuel. The NBA is now into the 3rd week of the season, and I think we're in the 4th week now. We're nearly a month into this thing. There's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of any given game, which for some of these late games might not be as difficult to catch the start, but if you do miss the start and you just want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next in the game if you're live betting to 4th quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. Like yesterday, for instance, during the game, you might have said, hey, the Wolves are going to win by more than the original line of 7.5. You would have been wrong because of some of the shenanigans at the end. The Filipowski flop contributed to that, didn't it? Ace Bailey, too. Great. But FanDuel live betting keeps every game exciting, especially when your team is making a late push in any given game. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Today's episode is also brought to us by our friends at Mint Mobile. If you're still overpaying for wireless, it's time to say yes to saying no. At Mint Mobile, their favorite word is no. No contracts, no monthly bills, no overages, no hidden fees, and no BS. I said yes to making the switch, and I'm getting premium wireless for just $15 a month. Mint makes it simple. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. You can even bring your own phone and keep your same number and contacts. The best thing about it is if you switch, you're getting the same quality service that you had, but for a fraction of the price. The setup is extremely easy if you're switching over. You keep your number, and then you can get up and going in just minutes. Are you ready to say yes to say no? Make the switch at mintmobile.com/LockedOnNBA. That's mintmobile.com/LockedOnNBA. Upfront payment of $45 required, equivalent to $15 per month. Limited time new customer offer for first 3 months only. Speeds may slow above 35 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Taxes and fees extra. See Mint Mobile for details. All right, so the first big thing is Julius Randle. Number two, I'm going to call this timely contributions / if I was going to put a title on this, which apparently I am, timely contributions / the Timberwolves' big four. What I mean by that is it was a bit of a take. Like, I don't mean this. A couple years ago, the cat ant offense was a take turn offense. And I think even Chris Finch used that term at some point. My turn, your turn is what I kept saying. I think he called it a take turn offense. It was the way that this was approached was a good thing in this game. It wasn't like an ISO take turn offense. It was just, hey, Rudy's going and they're not guarding him. Let's throw him lobs early in the game. And again, Rudy had a couple dunks early that I think got him going for the game. And I meant to talk about Rudy a little bit more when I talked about Randle a minute ago. But Rudy was great once again. We'll talk about him in studs and duds. 14 and 12, a couple more blocks. I thought he had more than 2 blocks. Certainly a ton of shots altered. Gobert was outstanding in the first quarter, especially of this game. But again, setting the tone against a team with an inferior front court. And I know Yusuf Nurkic is a good player, but he's not as good as Rudy Gobert. And yeah, like there's no depth there. Like I know Kevin Love played. He's not like, he's not a rebounding force like he used to be. Guys like Filipowski and they're not providing much resistance in the paint. So yeah, Rudy should dominate, but he has to do it, and he has to do it early to set a tone, and he did that in this game. And second quarter wasn't as good, and the Wolves ultimately won the quarter by a bucket. That was just kind of they fell behind. It was like, oh shoot, we can't be losing by 9 to this team. And they kind of recovered as a team. The third quarter, though, Anthony Edwards came out and hit a ridiculously tough shot immediately. He got to the line. I think had a dunk mixed in there. Julius had a dunk. It was Ant and Randle together. The third quarter tone primarily set by Ant, but Randle was a piece of it. So Ant and Randle took over the third quarter, the 40-point quarter, which took Minnesota from down 2 at halftime to up by 13 going to the fourth quarter. And then Jaden McDaniels, who had 6 points over the first 3 quarters of the game, puts it away essentially by himself down the stretch. He had 10 fourth quarter points. I think he had 6 coming to the fourth. 10 quick fourth quarter points. Good defense. Knocks down a 3. And really kind of cemented the game for the Wolves. And you look up, you got Ant with 35. You got Julius with 27. You got Jaden with 16. And then both Rudy Gobert and Dante DiVincenzo with 14 apiece. And it just kind of happened where each of these guys kind of assumed the role of this is my quarter. This is my moment. I'm gonna step up and do this. And frankly, that's not like necessarily a recipe every night. It's not realistic for every game. But on the second night of a back-to-back against an inferior opponent where it's just you're slugging it out, like we just got to figure this out. We just got to figure this out. And like nobody could make a 3 besides Ant. Like they shot 30% as a team, and of course they've been top 3-point percentage all season to this point over the first 10 games of the season. Ant was 5 of 9. The rest of the team combined to make 5 3-pointers. The rest of the team was 5 for 24 from outside the arc. Reid was 1 of 7. Dante was 1 of 8. Randle was 1 of 4. Just ugly. But you got to slog through, and they did it. And it was taking turns offensively for who's going to take over that I thought was a big piece of it and worked out really well. My last big thing, the shortened rotation, once again, it's really more of a keep an eye on this thing, which I'm going to get into some keep an eye on smaller things here in a moment. But this one I think is significant, especially because it's the second night of a back-to-back. Now, caveat, TJ Shannon is still out with the foot injury. He's missed, I think, 4 games now. He wasn't playing well before then. and was already kind of, the minutes were few and far between. I should say far between. Few, we'll say, for Shannon. Rob Dillingham had a couple DNP CDs in there. He only played in the first half. I don't believe he played at all in the second half of this game, and it was a 4-minute stint. Missed his only shot attempt. I thought was fine overall. Well, actually, his shot attempt, he blew a layup. But besides that, he had a rebound, he had an assist. Was fine in his stint in the first half, but did not play in the second half. Jalen Clark only played 13 minutes too. So this suddenly turned into, essentially, it was an 8-man rotation, but Clark played 13 minutes, Conley played 18. Nas played 28, and then the starters all played at least 34 minutes, which is a big load of minutes on the second night of a back-to-back in Game 11 of the season. Now, other caveat, the Timberwolves are off Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. They get 3 consecutive days with no games, which is unusual. And then it leads into another back-to-back at home, Friday, Saturday. So the hope, obviously, is that given another, essentially, week, Shannon will be back. Perhaps the rotation balloons back up to like a real 9 where Dillingham or Shannon are playing more minutes, or maybe 10 and they're each getting 5 to 10 minutes a game. Whatever the case might be, it's something to keep an eye on. Chris Finch talked a lot in the offseason about, hey, look, I'm going to have to play 9. Shannon's going to be in the rotation, like all this stuff. Obviously, it can change between June press conference and mid-November, I think it has. But I think it would be interesting if he pulled the shoot on the 9-man rotation this early in the season, not even a month in, and like, oh, we're back to 8, and Jalen Clark is the 8th guy, and Dillingham and Shannon can, they're on the fringes of that 9-man spot. I don't know that we're there, but we were in this game. So I think that's notable. It's also, I think, notable because I thought this game actually kind of suited Dillingham a little bit. I thought he would have added something that did need a little bit more pop scoring-wise at times. Of course, the 40-point third didn't hurt. And the perimeter defense, like, I know Keontae George had a big game, but, like, I don't know. I mean, it's not like we said this before last Friday's game against Utah when I previewed that matchup. Like, nobody else is going to hurt you on the perimeter with this Utah team. So, you could get away with playing Dillingham in a matchup like this. A little bit less so against Sacramento. You got to be like, the pace of the Sacramento game Friday is going to be more suited to Dillingham, but the perimeter defense is going to be more important against a team like the Kings. So be interested to see if Dillingham gets any more run Friday, but encouraging that he's still on the fringes. Just keep an eye on what that rotation looks like. All right, let's transition into some additional stuff that I wanted to point out. First, speaking of stuff, the stuff I was worried about happening in this game did happen, and it's why the game was so close. The offensive rebounding for the Jazz, they had 16 offensive rebounds. Basketball Reference box scores have a rebound rate, an advanced box score. It was 31% was the offensive rebound rate for Utah. That's a problem. Now, Utah's a good offensive rebounding team. I think they were number 1 in the league coming in. We talked about this in the show yesterday. I was worried about it. Let's see. According to Cleveland Glass, they're currently 4th in the NBA in offensive rebound rate. So they're a top 5 offensive rebound team, and they're number 2 in free throw rate. And what was the other thing that happened? Well, they also shot a lot of free throws. Overall in this game, they attempted 24 free throws. Now, the Wolves had 28, so they balanced that out, which I think was certainly part of the plan. This was another whistle-happy game. This is a whole other topic, but whistles across the league are definitely up, and it's frustrating. That was the case in this game once again. The Wolves are playing in a lot of high free throw games. They foul a lot. They get to the line. They've been to the line a decent amount, especially compared to what that free throw rate looks like occasionally. Like they're top half of the league in free throw rate now, which is a positive trend for Minnesota, but they also foul a lot defensively. Anyway, that was a concern, and that did happen. And lo and behold, they were down 9 in the second quarter. This was back to a single digit game earlier in the fourth quarter, and ultimately they only won by 7. So this is just a case of, look, they're the better team. They had the best player, actually the best, probably 3 players on the court in this game, maybe 4. Ultimately, they won this war of attrition on the second night of a back-to-back. But the reason it was so close is one of the primary reasons is what I was worried about. The defensive rebounding or lack thereof from Minnesota, and then secondarily and related to that, the amount of free throws that Utah was able to shoot. That was a problem. Also, I thought the Wolves should dominate the paint. They did. They were plus 18 in the paint in this game, 54-36, and competed in the open floor as well. The fast break points were very similar. I think Minnesota was just a -1 there. So palatable. The turnovers were lower. Like they did all the stuff they needed to do. In fact, this played out almost exactly as what I thought would happen. They just didn't shoot the 3 as well. And I guess that would be the counterpoint here is, hey, if you shoot the 3 at a normal rate instead of 30%, if the Wolves shoot 37% and make 2 or 3, like if they make 3 more threes, Sorry, if they make one more three, if they made 3 more threes, they would have been like right at 37%. And this is suddenly a 15-point win. So I thought overall this game played out according to how the Wolves, or how I expected to, and probably according to plan for the Wolves. But the defensive rebound thing is something to keep an eye on moving forward. And we've talked about it before. But right now, sitting here right now, the Minnesota Timberwolves, this is after this game, Cleaning the Glass is updated. Minnesota is, where'd it go? They're 27th in defensive rebound rate. Or the way Cleaning the Glass positions it is opponents' offensive rebound rate. So there's only 3 teams that allow opponents to offensive rebound at a higher rate than Minnesota does. And that's part of their problem defensively. They're still a bottom half of the league defensive team. Well, they're a top 5 offense. They're 18th in defense. So Minnesota's got to shore that up. And if they could just be averagey, we'll talk more about this tomorrow, on the defensive glass, then that immediately boosts their defense a few spots in the league rankings. That would be a huge difference. The free throw rate stuff has improved a little. They're doing an okay job contesting. I think they're protecting the paint pretty well, but it's the rebounding. And thankfully, Rudy has been really good lately on the glass. Randle's held his own, but they need the guards and the wings to rebound more. McDaniels and even Conley, DiVincenzo, like they've got to do a bit better. We'll talk more about that later this week, but that I thought was a notable thing I wanted to point out. Let's close by talking studs and duds. We'll do that here next to close out the show today. Today's episode of Locked On Wolves is brought to us by our title sponsors at Game Time. Basketball season is nearly a month underway now, and nothing beats being in the arena for those opening games. But let's be real, getting tickets can be a total headache. Between waiting in queues, surprise fees, and prices that jump right before checkout, it's easy to get frustrated when all you want to do is cheer on your team, and that's where Game Time comes in, the app that gives fans the advantage. It's your ultimate life hack for scoring amazing NBA tickets fast, easy, and stress-free. Coming up, the Timberwolves play Friday night. It's an NBA Cup game. You get to see that awesome, is the black and green, Northern Lights-ish, Aurora Borealis style NBA Cup court on Friday night as they take on the Sacramento Kings. And then Saturday, they play the Nuggets. So whether it's the Cup game Friday night or you want to hit the back-to-back against Jokic and the Nuggets Saturday, you can check those tickets out on Game Time. You can find tickets on Game Time oftentimes for under $25. Their zone deals, by the way, are a big game changer. You can pick your section, and then Game Time will pick your seats, and you win because you get to save big. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. That's code LOCKEDONNBA, LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Today's episode of Locked On Wolves is also brought to us by Robinhood. Your ambition just met its match with Robinhood. You play for the win, not just on game day, every day. Locking in on every opening, beating your PR, beating it again. Channel that drive into your money. Robinhood puts you in control of your money. Trade stocks and ETFs, options, futures, and crypto, all on one platform. You can now build and execute your own trades from a desktop with Robinhood Legends advanced tools, or take advantage of the new Robinhood strategies with a tailored portfolio managed by a team of experts. You expect more from yourself. Expect more from your money. Get started today at Robinhood.com/yourmoney. Again, that's Robinhood.com/yourmoney. Your money, your move. All right, big thank you once again for making Locked On Wolves your first listen of the day. And again, a thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network out there. Amazing news that we're now #1. So a big thank you for listening to the show every single day. All right, let's close with studs and duds. And once again, same predicament I had on yesterday's show. I could pick 4 studs, and I'm struggling to come up with a dud. I thought we haven't even talked a lot about Ant because it was just a flurry in the third quarter, and that was kind of it. He had some big shots in the fourth as they were kind of holding the Kings at arm's length too. But we can start with Ant. 35 points, 6 boards, 6 assists, only 1 turnover for Anthony Edwards. Again, a little bit of a slow start to this game, not as slow as the Kings game, but he finished over 50% from the field and 3. So, I mean, that's pretty good, turns out. 35 points on 25 shots, and he only attempted 4 free throws. Which is interesting. It's not like he didn't shoot 2-pointers in this game. He shot 16 twos. He was 8 of 16 on twos, so 50% on twos, but only got to the line 4 times and made all 4 of his free throws. Great Ant performance. I mentioned earlier they need him to rebound a little better. I mean, 6 boards isn't bad for Ant in 38 minutes. He led the team in minutes played. You'd like him to have 7 or 8. That's actually not a bad number. I think the bigger issue is Dante had 1 rebound and Conley had 2. So yeah, if you're not going to get rebounded from your point guards, that's the bigger problem. But Ant played well. Third quarter was huge. He put the team on his back really and just was like, all right, like let's stop messing around. Now, yes, it should happen earlier. Yes, he should play a more complete game, whatever. Those are nitpicks. This is the second night of a back-to-back. I established all that off the top. You take what you can get, and this was a nice Ant performance overall. Really nice to see him put together something closer to a full game after the rough start against the Kings and a bit of an up and down couple of games here since returning from the hamstring. But overall, a nice Ant game, certainly a stud in this one. Julius Randle, we talked about pretty extensively early, 27, 8, 7, and 3 steals in this game. 27 on 16 shots, thanks to the 13 free throw attempts, of which he made 12. He was a game best, plus 22. A very nice performance from Julius Randle. I don't know that we need to say much else there. My final stud, it's tough to go Rudy or Jaden. Jaden had a great fourth quarter. I'm going to go Rudy Gobert, though. Gobert had 14 points, 12 boards, 3 offensive rebounds, 2 blocks, 1 assist, just the 2 turnovers. He did commit 5 fouls in 34 minutes. But again, the physicality and edge that Rudy set early in this game was really important. He had shot 7 of 8. After, what did we say after the first 6 games? I talked extensively about Rudy about a week ago. He had 2 great games, 2 terrible games, and 2 kind of meh games. And then he turned into like 2 or 3 meh games in a row. And now he's been really, really good the last couple times out. Like he wasn't good in the Knicks game, that loss a week ago. He was a little bit less relied upon in that Jazz win on Friday. He's been awesome. 19, 12, and 5 blocks against the Kings, 14, 12, and 2 blocks against the Jazz. Like, again, inferior opponents, guys he should dominate in the paint, and he is doing it. He did that in this game. He's got to continue it against the Kings on Friday, and then obviously the Nuggets is the big one on Saturday. Like, what kind of a game will he turn in against Denver, Jokic, Valanciunas, and those guys on Saturday night? But in this game, Rudy was awesome. Duds, I don't know. I feel not great about picking a dud in this game, but I kind of didn't last game, so I guess I'm gonna do it. I don't know. Honestly, nobody on the bench played great. I thought Conley was okay. Nas wasn't like terrible, but the shooting was bad and Jalen wasn't great. So I'm going to cheat on the duds. I think I cheated yesterday on studs and I split. I went like 2 and then 2 half studs and basically no duds. I went 3 studs in today's game. I'm going to split the duds between Nas, Reid, and Jalen Clark. Nas had 7 points on 10 shots. That, no matter how you slice it, is not efficient. 5 boards, 3 assists, which is nice, and a steal and a block, also nice. Only 1 of 7 shooting from outside the arc for Nas Reid. So he was 2 of 3 on 2s, 1 of 7 on 3s. Was a team worst, minus 14. I just, Nas has been a little bit off for a lot of the season. He's had his moments, but, they need a little more out of Nas. He's got to be more efficient off the bench. They didn't need him to be in this game or the game prior against the Kings, but they're going to moving forward. He's going to have to play well against the Nuggets on Saturday, right? Jalen Clark, not great. I think defensively he was fine. He committed 4 fouls in 13 minutes, has been a little bit handsy since, early in this season after he came back from his injury. Only 2 points. He missed his only 3-point shot, which wasn't a bad shot. I think it went in and out too. Like made multiple threes the other night. He might have even made 3 threes against the Kings. So, probably a blip on the radar for Jalen, but I think the expectations are a little higher for him in 13 minutes. Just kind of go out there and wreak havoc. He did have 1 steal, but honestly, like 1 steal in 13 minutes feels like a low number for Jalen. So we'll split the dud between Nas and Jalen Clark. I thought Conley was good. I thought Dillingham was fine in his 4 minutes. So obviously keep an eye on that rotation as we move forward. The rest of this week, I do want to dig in a bit more on what's different about Julius Randle's season to this point. We now have a sample size that's, we're easily more than a tenth of the way through the season. So yes, still a very small sample size, but I want to dig in on like things that are maybe surprising or different from this year versus last year, like the total body of work from last year. Randle will certainly be a big focus point of this because he's been phenomenal this year, like is playing it at all NBA level. So we'll dig in on him a bit more, but we got the next couple of days to do this. The Wolves don't play again until Friday. So we'll do this Wednesday, Thursday. We'll dig in on some of those numbers, some of the trends, what's working, what's not. How are the Wolves a top 5 offense unexpectedly? Well, maybe not completely unexpectedly. I said before the season, that was actually one of my predictions that they would be. So I shouldn't say that it's unexpected, but I think the more surprising thing is how bad the defense has been in contrast to how good the offense has been. And then Friday, we'll set you up for Wolves Kings Friday night. We'll also talk Wolves Nuggets Saturday, since we just saw the Kings and haven't seen the Nuggets here in a few weeks. So we'll break all that down here throughout the week. A big thank you for making Locked On Wolves your first listen every day. Of course, this show is free and available everywhere. You can listen wherever you like to listen to podcasts. You can watch on YouTube. And again, a big thank you for making us your first listen and for being a big part of getting us to the #1 sports podcast network that exists. Of course, for your second listen, check out Locked On Fantasy Basketball, also a part of the #1 sports podcast network. Josh Lloyd hosts the #1 fantasy basketball podcast, giving you daily tips and helping you win your league, all while making you a smarter NBA fan. You can find the show on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Again, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Once again, I'm Ben Beecken. This is the Locked On Wolves podcast, and we'll catch you next time.